These stats will surprise you. 52% of creators apparently are burnt out.
Like, the world is somewhat burnt out on the old game. We've consumed so much social media now that death scrolling is a term.
The reason that people burn out emotionally, yes, is because it's taxing to show up every day to that level, but also because it's taxing to be drained by the lack of results.
It's less about the followers and more about the content itself, and just allowing that content to find its audience.
No matter the size of creator you are, you have to start thinking like an operator.
I can bring that content in and it's time sensitive. I can push that up.
You can do that because of the backlog.
Burnout isn't even in my head. I could literally take 2 weeks off now.
You all want to get to.
And it's where we all need to be. And I'm not a content creator.
I want to talk about the burnout crisis for creators right now because we're just about to go into 2026. A lot of people are probably ending the year feeling pretty stressed, burnt out by what they're balancing, especially creators. And some new stats have come out that I want to talk to you about because it's exactly in the line of thought that we often take personal brands through, especially, founders, other influencers, and the many people that we manage within the agency. One of the biggest things we struggle with is like people finding the time and being able to balance all of the many things they're trying to do, because a lot of the time, them creating is not their sole thing. Often we handle doctors and, people who their main passion or their main business offer is completely separate from actually creating. And so that makes creating a very stressful endeavor at times. These stats will surprise you. I was surprised. So 52% of creators apparently are burnt out. 52, that's over half of creators are reporting that they are feeling burnt out by the act of creating. 37% thinking about quitting. That's so upsetting when you think about a lot of the time that creators start is because they are passionate about sharing whatever, their venture is with the world. They've got a message they believe that they can share with the world, and now they're thinking about quitting because of how, almost cyclical, redundant the system feels, the system they're in, which we'll get to. There's another way. There is another way, which feels hopeful. Brands keep pouring billions into the industry, but it's collapsing in some ways. Clearly for creators, it's their system that they're operating in is collapsing. But we know that the creator economy itself isn't. The creator economy is growing. There's still millions and millions of billions of dollars being put into it. But why are creators still landing in the same place emotionally with it? And I know you've felt this way too, in the sense that you create your own content and you know that as much as we can, build these systems that are strategic and make sure you have this foundation to your content, there is also the human side to it.
Absolutely.
Of you overcoming barriers to creating content, the resistance to creating content. And if you have to overcome those new barriers in the same way every time, that's very tiring. So it's not surprising that 52% of creators are burnt out. There's more here in terms of financial instability. 55% feel unstable. And that's probably a lot of creators that it is their sole thing. They're trying to make it their vocation. Creative fatigue, 40% feel it. I'm sure that goes for both those that are, solely within the creator industry and those that are trying to make it part of their revenue stream or trying to bring audiences into their main business. You can imagine thinking about 1,000,001 content ideas in addition to what you already do is tough.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that jump out here. That first of all, the stats are alarming, right? Number one, because they're big. These are big numbers. At the same time, for those of us that are in the industry, it's somewhat unsurprising at the same time, which is kind of the sad part of this. But let's dissect this, because I think part of it also is the opportunity within it, which we'll get to obviously within the conversation. But I think you're looking at fatigue, you're looking at workload, you're looking at burnout fundamentally, instability you mentioned, arguably financial, but I think there's other forms of instability that probably play into it as well. Like, am I going to get anything out of doing this in the first place? I'm 6 months in and I didn't book a brand deal, or I'm 6 months in and my business metrics haven't actually changed. You keep going down that lane. And I think fundamentally it plays into the opportunity, and the timing couldn't be better because coming into 2026, we're seeing a lot of key shifts. And I think bringing the conversation for what those shifts could be, what they could mean for these creators to start to dig them out of these burnout ruts, is hopefully going to bring a lot of value, to be honest.
And everyone goes into the new year thinking, okay, how can I better spend my energy and time? We all do that. Like we're humans. We've only got finite resources no matter what you do. And so I think it's such a natural conversation to have as to how you're going to better preserve that energy and also make sure that it compounds, which we're going to go into the various ways that you can actually ensure you're not starting a new system every time. Because I honestly, I feel for creators. Like I said, we create content ourselves. We manage a lot of people who are also creating content, whether we're coming to shoot with them or they're shooting with themselves. And you can find yourself on this treadmill of new day, what do I post?
And of course, the problem with that is that every time you sit down and look at it like that, and the sad thing is that a lot of creators are still in that mode. We hear it every day. The inertia that you have to overcome, just that alone, is enough to paralyze someone. And then a day disappears and you haven't done anything. And let's not even go into the additional compounding problems that that presents for someone in their wider life as well, of just feeling unaccomplished and not actually getting anything done. And it's like, it really plays into, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but I want to introduce it now, the framework of looking at things through the lens of the difference between the creator operating system, as we refer to it, but just being a creator, a content creator. I'm creative and I'm coming up with ideas, but there's a lot of inertia. There's a lot of burn. Like the stats are coming from that way of thinking. There's no two ways around it. That is the reason these stats are coming out. Shifting that into an operator operating system, right? And then being able to look at yourself as an operator. I now have a system. I'm going from the treadmill to a flywheel. I am creating a content engine series that is repeatable, these formats that I can lean into. I've even started doing it with my own content. And I'm by no means a big creator, but I've created a system. I've created an engine where I can batch produce content in a very manageable way that doesn't affect my normal day-to-day business or my day-to-day life. Now, of course, if I want to lean into additional formats, if I want to lean into additional ways of creating content, then of course I'll dedicate more time to it. But for me, being able to just I allocate like 2 hours a week to content. It's that little because of the system I've created.
Yeah.
And
But that's how you can do it on days where you feel good or bad. Whereas a lot of people are building systems that rely on them to feel 100% every day. Because it's like, how are you going to sit there every day, wake up and be like, right, I'm going to come up with the best idea today?
it's just
Not even, once again, some days you're going to be at 60, 40, 80. And you also, this is one corner of your life. Even if you are creative full time, you also have a personal life, you have other stresses. So it's like you can't build a system that relies on you being at full capacity to come up with this content strategy every day.
And even if you are a full-time creator and it feels like it's your entire life, it should not be your entire life. We meet a lot of creators that it's their full-time job, which is amazing and incredible that you've created a system, hopefully that's sustainable to be able to do that. But this is also why burnout comes in, because then they neglect the rest of their life, which once again exposes the flaw in their current system. And so even if you are a full-time creator, and we all know them, and maybe some people are watching this right now, it encompasses their entire life, and that's not sustainable in and of itself. Because at some point you have a family, at some point you need to go to the gym, at some point you need to visit a friend, and so once again we come back to being more of an operator for your business, for your content creation, and looking at it through that lens because it's the only sustainable way to grow.
Yeah. I think that terminology is so intentional. Like when we think of a creator, it reminds me of like a freelancer who thinks that they have to do everything themselves and therefore is just overloaded, no hours left in the day. And then you think of an operator who starts to think about what they can outsource because they know they can't do it all themselves. So, how are they actually going to scale up a business and make sure the efforts that they make compound into, yes, within a business, other team members, but when you're talking about it in terms of social, it's your own ecosystem, right? So how can you make sure that today's post is going to compound or today's effort is going to compound into you being ahead tomorrow, not you being at the same point asking yourself what you're going to post tomorrow, because that's not compounding effort. That's starting from scratch. And that's what's burning you out, right?
And the problem with that is that that's what it feels like people are doing on a day-to-day by setting themselves up for those frameworks. They are having to create and reinvent the wheel every single day. And when we get into looking through the lens of an operator and you start to build out your content engine, and you don't have to run the frameworks that we do by any means. For what it's worth, they work and they're there for a reason, but you just have to make the shift to look at things through that lens. That alone will help tremendously, and it will get these stats down from whatever it was, 52%,
Yeah.
exponentially overnight, because straight away you just need to start looking at content creation through that operator lens. And it's exactly as you just said. You're now thinking of ways to outsource things. You're now, and I'm not just talking about hiring people, I'm also thinking about how do you schedule things, how do you time block things, how do you optimize and leverage AI, right? It's the tools are actually very much readily available. We're not talking about having to spend more money. In fact, we may be talking about spending less.
Mhm.
We're not talking about spending more time. In fact, we're likely talking about spending less. But it's starting to think of things through a more operational approach with systems that you can then repeat. And there's very many ways that that can be done creatively. I do want to just kind of go into this real quickly. It will take us into some of our frameworks, but it's also I think it's easy to fall into the trap of saying, oh, well, it's okay if you're a podcaster. Sure, you've got your 1-10-30 framework, if you will, where you do one big podcast and then you get your 10 cut downs from that podcast and then you get your 30 carousels and, you know,
Next threads, all of it.
100%. And that's fair. But this framework can absolutely be done on any type of format, whether it's a man on the street format that you batch the content so that you're not going out and doing man in the street with one person going back home. And no. Get 20 of them, right? Like change your outfit. These are systems. Turning up, it doesn't have to be expensive. Again, this might be you just going out on your own with in your car, but take a suitcase. Make it look like it was 5 different there's systematic things that you can do.
Build multiple series. We call them signature series, but build multiple series within that man on the street. What are these different conversations that you're having? Again, if you change outfit, that can be a signal that we're actually into a new series now.
You could take one man in the street piece of content, you could get a freeze frame from that piece of content, you could run a music B-roll with text on the screen that reveals the 5 things I learned from this crazy dude. Like creativity is not in question, right? Like we have AI, we have tools, we also just have our own creativity. We can do it on the fly right now in real time. But the reality is what we're really doing is trying to operationalize the entire process so that it becomes manageable, so that you don't find yourself in a situation of burnout. And I promise you, these frameworks or just looking at it through that lens applies to any format, to any content style, and through any methodology, but it's starting to just switch the way you approach it.
And what I love about this is it obviously tackles the creator burnout, which we're talking about the emotional side. But the reason that people burn out emotionally, yes, is because it's taxing to show up every day to that level, but also because it's taxing to be drained by the lack of results. And that comes from also starting from scratch. So you're not running an experiment if every day you're starting a new experiment because there's no A/B testing involved in that, right? So you're changing too many variables that you have no data to go off. So no wonder once again you're going, yeah, let me test something completely different. and then having no idea what your real content strategy is, what actually works for you. So these things, these series and these compounding formats, yes, they're going to make it easier when it comes to what do I post today? I already know. But they're also going to give your audience reason to come back and to show up again, because it's not just clear to you what you create, it's clear to others what you create.
And how do you define the word works? How do you define the word performance? Right? Now you're starting to shift again, looking at things through the lens of the creator operating system. The creator economy is built off of likes, views. You have multiple videos on your personal account with hundreds of thousands of views. I have multiple videos on my account, hundreds, millions of views. Literally, I have multiple videos with millions of views. Are they the right views? Right? Like, did they convert to what I actually am trying to
An
do?
audience that, yeah.
And so once you shift from the creator perspective, the creator operating system, to the operator's operating system, now you're starting to, yes, operationalize, systemize the approach. But to your point, even on the performance side of things, you're also shifting that, or you need to. You need to start looking at things, because then the reason that a lot of these people that are burning out isn't just because of the content creation component, is because they don't feel like they're getting the results that they want. Why? Because they've been sold this lie from the creator economy that they need to get 1 million views to be relevant. Not true. Not true, right? The operating system starts to look through the lens of authority. We have multiple clients, and it's not even about us. There are millions of, or at least hundreds of thousands of people out there that have shifted their perspective. They are content creators, but they are running their business, their content creation process, through the lens of being an operator, and the performance of what works is being viewed through the lens of performance metrics such as conversions to their business, brand partnerships that they're receiving. And this isn't based on people getting 1 million views every single video. We, just for the record, we manage over 150 talent exclusively in various different categories. So we see brand deals all day, every day. We have booked multiple millions of dollars worth of brand deals at this point. Every single year we do. We also work on the agency side with personal brands, right? Each person is looking for something different, but the key is that they know what they're looking for, that what they're working towards. If it's brand partnerships, okay, cool. What industry are we in? What are we trying to target? Because we don't need to get 1 million views every single video. We just need to get, let's say, hypothetically, 10,000 views of the right views.
Yes.
And then we know
Start
we
to
can
look at
take
the other
that.
metrics too, because you start to go, okay, what's the correlation between the people that engage with my content and those that actually convert? I mean, it's the people who save and share it, not the people who just like and view it. Because we know that those metrics are like major indicators that you've connected with someone on a deeper level.
Yep.
Saves say, I want to come back to it. Shares say, I think this is so valuable, somebody else needs to see it. And it's like, that's usually the person that's going to eventually, walk across the line. So it's like, are you looking at those? If that's what you want, if you want people to actually convert into whatever your business offer is, those are probably the more important metrics to you.
I couldn't agree more, because it's not always going to be the case, but there are going to be a lot of instances where a like might mean, oh, that was all right, or that was funny, that was entertaining, but there's no conversion, there's no action based on that. Even a comment might be, this sucks. It's not moving anywhere closer to what you want to do.
Bit of feedback for you.
Can't get that 30 seconds back, you know? Like, okay.
A win is a win.
Yeah.
Yes, but people do that. They're like, any sort of feedback or any sort of input, any sort of engagement is good engagement. And it's like, yeah, okay.
It's the old game.
But yeah, it's the old game. How far does that go? You can keep saying that till you're blue in the face.
Because here's what's going to happen if you're playing the creator OS and the old game. Let's mesh those together. Fundamentally, the game that you're playing is a CPM model. That's what you're playing. And the CPMs are going to continually drop down. right? And this is basically the way that these ad platforms, be that YouTube payouts, even the TikTok rewards program, Snap has their own payout, Facebook now has a great monetization program, but they're all based on, for the most part, CPM models. Now, some of these CPMs vary dependent on the industry you're in. Like if you're in a financial sector, your CPMs might be higher by the nature of those brands wanting to spend more money on those pieces of content. But generally speaking, it's a race to the bottom. It's who can get the most views. But if everyone's playing that game, there's more people coming in every day. There's only so many dollars to go round. And sure, the economy is booming, or at least the creator economy is booming. The advertising within social media economy is booming. But still, there is a limit to that number of dollars when exponentially more content is being produced every day, especially with AI now. So it is literally a race to the bottom. Now that worked 3, 4, 5 years ago, where there wasn't every person and his dog trying to be a creator. Now everyone and their dogs and their cats are creators, right? So
If you want to have any sort of longevity in the space, you have no choice. You need to move into an operator mindset, which is what I want to move into now. Like, how do you build authority without burning out? Let's give a few key takeaways. I want to start with kill the daily grind. Like, actually stop starting from scratch. You can't do this post daily. You need to start thinking in series. Whether you take on the signature series framework or you take on your own, you need to start building a narrative over time that has, clear content arcs within it, as opposed to going, how am I going to tell a new story every day?
Yep, I love that. I think that's an amazing one. I'll lead us into the Sparkler Bonfire framework because
Classic.
it's a favorite of mine, because it's a way of looking at content through the lens of, like, my bonfire is my authority, it's my core pillar, it's what I ultimately want people to know me for, recognize me for, buy into me for, right? Convert ultimately.
It's like the
And
real value, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, exactly that. But then I'm thinking about that, and let's say for every bonfire piece of content that I'm going to produce, because I'm not expecting that to go viral, right? I'm speaking to a very, very specific audience. If you look at the traditional marketing funnel, it's really your middle to more so bottom funnel content. It's like, this is the conversion stuff. This is why I'm special and why you should buy from me or learn from me or whatever it might be. From each of those bonfire pieces of content, I need sparklers to get people in to see that bonfire content more and to recognize me more. Think of that as your top of funnel, right? So it's a bit more open, it's broader targeting, it's more viral potential. Now, if you're looking at that strategically, then you're going to want to do, 3 or 4 sparklers for every bonfire. And so that way you can also then start structuring out your content calendar. At that point, you can plan ahead. I am literally a month and a half ahead on all my content right now. That doesn't mean that I can't, something might happen. Marty Supreme, my favorite thing right now. And I can bring that content in, and it's time sensitive. I can push that up and I can move everything out.
But
If
you can do that because of the backlog.
Exactly. So burnout isn't even in my head. I could literally take 2 weeks off now. So I'm going to change a single thing, right?
I love that.
Like,
That's
that
what
is
we all want to get to.
where and it's where we all need to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not a content creator.
It's on the side. And that's why it's so pertinent that it takes only 2 hours.
Yes.
Right? And that's what we want all founders to get to as well.
Yeah. And it's the difference between, once again, being an operator as opposed to looking at yourself as a creator. Sure, I create content. It would be, ignorant of me to say I'm not a creator by definition, because I'm creating content, but I'm looking at it through the lens of saying I'm an operator. I'm operating a system, and that is why I'm afforded the flexibility to be able to take 2 weeks off and it not change anything. The upload schedule is going to stay the same. The content's going to keep flowing. I've got it broken down between bonfires and sparklers. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I implore others to start to look at things the same way.
Totally. The next thing I want to remind everyone is what we've spoken about. Decide your victory metrics.
Yes.
What is success to you, actually, in terms of your business model, or even in terms of being a creator? If your, success metric is gaining however many brand deals, make sure all your efforts are actually navigating in that direction. And then at the same time, be aware of the vanity metrics, the things that make you feel good in the moment, but they're not actually aligned with your goals. Because sometimes, as we've spoken about, being swayed by those vanity metrics actually brings you away from the victory.
I can speak to this, and I don't mind being vulnerable to it. One of my first viral videos, I believe it's over 1 million views now, was a case study breakdown on EDM DJ duo. They're actually independent DJs, but they perform together a lot. Baby J and Ty Turner. I'm a fan, by the way. They're freaking awesome. So I did a case study breakdown of how they were leveraging social media to pop off and start booking more DJ gigs. And I was like, keep an eye out for these two. You're going to start seeing them everywhere. Sure enough, you have, and they're crushing it. And it's amazing. Every follower that came and still does come from that video is a music fan. And I see it like it's in their titles, right? Like Tom loves music, like Sally musician. And I'm like, am I about to just like have this influx of people that think I'm a music creator, or that all I do is talk about music? There's an angle there. Granted, it's a case study of how these musicians have leveraged social media. I'm probably getting away with it, and I have some other bonfire content that's somewhat saving my life a little.
Well, you're there asking yourself, are they going to engage with future content that isn't about these musicians? Because maybe they even think you're a music marketer.
But wait, I now have 15,000 followers when previously, you know what I mean? Like the vanity metrics.
And it goes and goes and goes.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
So you're absolutely right. Like it is getting very, very key metrics that actually matter to you, that matter to your business, honing in on those and making sure that your strategy backs into them. Yeah, it's a perfect example.
Yeah. And the last one I want to say is creating your signature series. The interesting one with this is we've spoken about a lot, even internally in the agency at the moment. Do I run one series? And it's like, no. There's this mindset that if you're running a series, all your content has to be related to that series at a particular moment in time. And really, the idea is that you pick around 3 to 5 that all obviously ladder back to your core message, but you're able to tap into these various aspects of your audience as well. But also, not everybody's going to be interested in every narrative you're telling or every angle of the narrative you're telling. For example, you could have done a music series because you could have been like, okay, I'm seeing success in this space. It's still marketing related. So I'm going to run a series that is related to, DJs, creators like that, musicians. And that's going to be one of my 5 that I create. And then I'm going to do a different category to showcase how, my marketing expertise can be applied to all these different categories. Those would be your 3 to 5 signature series.
I couldn't agree more. And obviously that exact thought has very much crossed my mind. And to be honest with you, it's what led me into the series that I have done, which is the Creator Breakdown series. Whether you are a DJ, I'm breaking down how they're leveraging social media to get more of that. Whether it's a brand, I'm breaking down how they're using social media to get that. Whether it's a creator in the talent space that's looking to get brand deals, I'm breaking down case studies of how they started producing specific content that now brands are seeing and partnering with them on. So it literally gave birth to a specific signature content series for me. And I want to take it a layer further because I think, and we're already starting to see this, but I think 2026 is going to be the year where it really takes off. This is a bit of a bandwidth and potentially investment constraint question. Doesn't have to be, but I think for a lot it will be, is looking at producing different channels through which these signature series are going to live. And I'll give you an example because I was thinking about it before. We know and are fans of Chris Williamson and the Modern Wisdom podcast that he has. What he started doing on his YouTube channel is doing some behind the scenes vlogs. Very entertaining. For what it's worth, it appeals to someone like me. I've actually enjoyed watching them. He did one in the UK where he was with Chris Bumstead and you saw a bit more of the behind the scenes and all that. He did one in LA I really enjoyed as well. But I did notice the view discrepancy. Yet it lives on the same channel. And I couldn't help but feel, is that view discrepancy or lack of engagement on this video going to then affect the next one because you're telling the algorithm that your content's different and therefore appeals to different people? And so is it going to serve your content moving forwards in the same way that it would?
Be slightly confused, yeah.
Exactly. Whereas, and he's big enough to be able to do this, and I'll bet it would just take off anyway, BTS Chris Williamson channel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And just create a channel for that content series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to see more of it. Some are already. Stephen Bartlett, I'm in the podcast space here, but he's very much done a behind the scenes, behind the diary. Exactly. And so I think you're going to start seeing more and more of that, all the way down to like TikTok and Instagram content creators, family creators, where they're doing what we're working with talent on the talent management side, where it's like this channel is going to be dedicated to your family life because you're now having a child and you're getting a home and all that. But, you know, Sarah, the 12-year-old kid that watches all your challenge tic-tac-toe and silly stuff and fun challenges, isn't that interested in that. So let's carve that out as its own channel with its own content signature series. So I love the content signature series angle. I agree, 3 to 5 of them. But I think what we're going to start seeing is people actually exploring having each of those series live in their own environments.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to know, no matter the size of creator you are, because as you said, it'll often be the big creators that have the bandwidth to do that, but they lead the charge and then the rest has a domino effect. And like we're saying, the through line is there of like the system you create, that even if you are a micro influencer or a smaller creator at the time, you can still take a lot of these through lines and be aware of how these content shifts affect the algorithm, what you're telling the algorithm, what your signature series are compounding to tell the algorithm and tell your audience. So I think overall, the biggest takeaway is that if you want to go into 2026 and you don't want to have potentially another year like 2025, or you don't want to be part of those stats of just flat burning out, you have to start thinking like an operator.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing I was going to add to that is that not only is the timing right, for the fact that I think the world is ready for it, right? The world is somewhat burnt out on the old game, right? We've consumed so much social media now that death scrolling is a term.
People aren't even engaging as much.
Rage bait was the word of 2025, right? Like, so the world has now also created some level of burnout for this stuff. So what that does is creates opportunity if you look at it through the right lens. And I think the world is ready for what we're talking about in 2026. We're already starting to see it anyway. And for the creators, that's a very exciting opportunity because I refer to it as the TikTokification of these algorithms, but they have all follow suit. So the FYP page of basically being all about what content you engage with is what you get served, as opposed to who you follow is what you get served. That alone has created this opportunity. So your content, your signature series content can very much appeal to audiences that just genuinely want to watch that style of content, where previously you wouldn't have been able to do that because it was only the creators with the big following that could do it because they had the audience. Now it's less about the existing audience. It's less about the followers and more about the content itself and just allowing that content to find its audience. And as we've seen, it doesn't need to be a huge audience. Some of our most successful talent on the brand partnership side don't have huge audiences, but they have a very specific audience. And some of our agency clients that are selling multiple, 7-8 figure businesses at this point, doing, from supplements through to clothing to beauty brands. Again, they don't have millions of followers. Some of them have like 40,000 followers, but they're such a bought in group that's tied in around the content that's being produced. It's incredibly powerful. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it all ties back into the overarching point of just creating systems, which is ultimately leading through of looking at things through the lens as an operator rather than a creator. Like, even if you are content creating, you should aspire to be an operator. Look at it through that lens and you will avoid burnout. You will afford yourself some flexibility to breathe in your life. And honestly, your content will probably perform better because you start thinking more strategically about it.
You'll start to see this as an exciting time instead of being daunted by the shift that's happening in social right now.
Couldn't agree more.